Some of America's fastest cars looked like they belonged to somebody's boss. Hit subscribe because these 10 executive sedans hid genuine muscle car engines underneath a suit and tie. 1962 Chevrolet Impala SS 409. If there's one car that basically invented the American sleeper sedan, it's this one. When Chevrolet introduced the Super Sport package for the 1962 Impala, the idea wasn't to build a race car. It was to build a slightly sportier trim level for a family car, something with a bit more chrome, some extra badging, and bucket seats for buyers who wanted to feel a little special on their morning commute. From the outside, the Impala SS looked exactly like what it was supposed to be. Clean, upright styling, tasteful trim, and the kind of presence that said comfortable family car, not street racer. Nothing about the sheet metal hinted at danger. But this is where the story gets interesting because buyers could check a box on the order form for something called the 409. A 409 cubic inch V8, built from Chevrolet's truck engine architecture but massively reworked for performance, capable of producing up to 409 horsepower in its highest state of tune, complete with dual 4-barrel carburetors. It was such an outrageous amount of power for a mid-size family sedan that it inspired the Beach Boys to write an entire song about it, a song that became one of the defining anthems of the era. On the road, the 409 Impala SS could run the quarter mile in the low 14-second range, numbers that stunned owners of dedicated European sports cars costing several times as much. It wasn't just quick in a straight line either. The extra weight over the rear wheels actually helped it put power down better than some lighter performance cars of the era. Chevrolet never built huge numbers of 409-equipped Impala SS cars relative to the millions of standard Impalas it sold, and today the finest surviving examples, especially numbers-matching cars with the dual-quad setup, easily exceed $100,000 at auction, with the rarest documented cars pushing considerably higher. 1963 Chrysler 300J. Chrysler's Letter Series 300 cars were built for one very specific kind of buyer, the executive who wanted to arrive at the office in something formal, understated, and expensive-looking, and then leave everyone else behind on the drive home. The 300J carried itself with quiet confidence. Long, clean lines, a formal roofline, and restrained use of chrome gave it the look of a serious, adult automobile, the kind of car that belonged parked outside a law firm, not a drag strip. It didn't need flashy styling to make a statement, and that restraint was entirely intentional. But underneath that dignified bodywork sat a 413 cubic inch V8 producing 390 horsepower, fitted with a distinctive crossram intake manifold that Chrysler had developed directly from its racing programs. The long, curved intake runners were tuned specifically to build torque at high RPM, giving the 300J genuinely thrilling acceleration for a car of its size and weight. It could reach 60 miles per hour in under 8 seconds, numbers that were extraordinary for a full-size luxury car in 1963. Inside, the 300J was just as much a contradiction as its powertrain. Leather seats, a full complement of gauges, and a level of craftsmanship that rivaled anything from Cadillac or Lincoln, all wrapped around a car that could out-accelerate plenty of dedicated sports cars. Only a few hundred 300JS were built during the 1963 model year, making it one of the rarest Letter Series Chryslers ever produced. Today, the finest surviving examples comfortably exceed $80,000, and pristine, fully documented cars continue to climb steadily in value among serious Mopar collectors. 1965 Pontiac Catalina 2+2. Everyone remembers the GTO as the car that launched Pontiac's muscle car reputation. Almost nobody remembers that Pontiac had already been quietly hiding the same philosophy inside its full-size executive lineup before the GTO ever existed. The Catalina 2+2 wore Pontiac's clean, wide-stance styling of the era, the kind of car a bank manager or a company vice president could drive to work without raising a single eyebrow. It looked substantial, dignified, and thoroughly respectable, with just enough extra trim to hint that it was a step above a standard Catalina. But this is exactly where the story gets interesting, because buyers could order the 2+2 with a 421 cubic inch V8, producing up to 376 horsepower in its most aggressive tri-power configuration. This was the same family of engine that powered Pontiac Super Duty race cars, the machines that dominated NASCAR ovals and drag strips across the country. With the 421 under the hood, a Catalina 2+2 could run the quarter mile in the low 14-second range, numbers that embarrass plenty of dedicated muscle cars that were supposedly built purely for performance. Combined with a 4-speed manual transmission, the car offered genuine driver engagement in a package most people assumed was built purely for comfort. Production numbers for the top-spec 421 tri-power cars were relatively low even in the Catalina 2+2's best years, and today the finest surviving examples easily exceed $60,000, with documented tri-power 4-speed cars commanding a serious premium among collectors who understand just how rare true performance spec Catalinas really are. Of the 3 cars so far, which would you take home? The Impala SS409, the Chrysler 300J, or the Pontiac Catalina 2+2? Let me know in the comments because we've still got 7 more sleepers to go. 1966 Buick Wildcat. Buick spent decades building its reputation on comfort, quiet, and dignified luxury, which is exactly what made the Wildcat such a surprise to anyone who actually understood what was under the hood. From the outside, it was everything a Buick was supposed to be in the mid-1960s. Soft, flowing lines, a padded vinyl roof option, generous chrome trim, and an interior built for long, relaxed highway cruising. Nothing about the Wildcat's presentation suggested performance. It was marketed alongside cars like the Electra as a comfortable, prestigious full-size Buick, the kind of car that appealed to buyers who valued a smooth ride and a quiet cabin above all else. But underneath that composed exterior sat a 425 cubic inch V8, available with Buick's distinctive dual-quad carburetor setup, producing up to 360 horsepower. It could push the nearly 2-ton Wildcat to 60 miles per hour in around 7 seconds, numbers that had absolutely no business coming out of a car built primarily for country club parking lots and quiet suburban driveways. What made the Wildcat especially deceptive was how effortlessly it delivered that power. Buick engineers tuned the engine and transmission to feel smooth and unhurried even under hard acceleration, so passengers rarely realized just how quickly the car was actually moving until they checked the speedometer. Today, the finest Buick Wildcat examples equipped with the top dual-quad engine option easily exceed $40,000, and well-preserved, fully documented cars continue to gain attention as collectors rediscover just how much performance Buick was quietly building into its luxury lineup during this era. 1968 Mercury Marauder X100. Mercury built the Marauder X100 to serve as the flagship of its entire lineup, a long, formal, personal luxury coupe designed to compete directly with cars like the Pontiac Grand Prix on comfort, prestige, and style rather than outright speed. Its distinctive fastback roofline, hidden headlights, and long, elegant proportions gave it a look that was closer to a European Grand Tourer than a typical American street machine. Every design decision seemed aimed at projecting sophistication rather than aggression, and that was entirely intentional on Mercury's part. Nothing about the design suggested what was actually sitting under that long, sculpted hood. Beneath it, Mercury fitted a 429 cubic inch V8 producing 360 horsepower, one of the largest and most powerful engines offered anywhere in Ford's family of brands that year. It gave the Marauder X100 genuinely thrilling muscle car-level acceleration in a body that most people on the road mistook for nothing more than a comfortable upscale highway cruiser. Inside, the X100 doubled down on the luxury image with reclining bucket seats, a center console, and a level of trim that made it feel closer to a personal luxury car than a performance coupe. That contrast between the plush cabin and the raw power underneath is exactly what made it such an effective sleeper. Production was modest even in its best year, and today the finest Mercury Marauder X100 examples easily exceed $35,000, with clean, original, numbers-matching cars becoming increasingly difficult to find as more of them are discovered and restored by collectors. 1963 Ford Galaxy 500 XL. Ford's Galaxy 500 XL was marketed as the sporty, upscale trim level of its full-size lineup, the kind of car a young executive might choose to distinguish himself slightly from the crowd without looking reckless or immature in the company parking lot. Its bucket seats and center console gave the cabin a noticeably more driver-focused feel than a standard Galaxy, but the exterior styling remained clean, conservative, and thoroughly respectable. It was, on paper, simply a nicer trim level of an already popular family car. But this is where the story becomes genuinely interesting, because Ford offered the Galaxy 500 XL with its formidable 427 cubic inch V8, producing up to 425 horsepower in its top dual 4-barrel configuration. This was the same engine family Ford used to dominate NASCAR ovals that season, an engine built with racing, not commuting, as its primary purpose. With the 427 under the hood, the Galaxy 500 XL could run the quarter mile in the low 14-second range, shocking numbers for a car that looked, from the outside, like nothing more than a dressed-up family sedan with a slightly sportier badge. Ford also offered lightweight versions of the car specifically for drag racing homologation, stripped of sound deadening and extra trim to shave every possible pound. Today, the finest 427-powered Galaxy 500 XL examples easily exceed $70,000, and the rare, documented lightweight racing versions built specifically for competition can command considerably more at auction, particularly when their racing history can be verified. 1969 Chrysler 300 Hearst. By the late 1960s, Chrysler's original letter series had come to an end, but the idea behind it never really disappeared. The 300 Hearst was a special, strictly limited run built in partnership with Hearst Performance, created to bring genuine muscle car credibility to Chrysler's flagship full-size car one final time before the decade closed out. Finished in a distinctive white and gold paint scheme with a functional fiberglass hood scoop, the 300 Hearst stood out slightly more than earlier letter series cars had. Even so, it still carried itself like a formal upscale automobile rather than a dedicated street racer, with the same dignified proportions and formal roofline that defined Chrysler's full-size lineup throughout the decade. Underneath that hood scoop sat a 440 cubic inch V8 producing 375 horsepower, enough to move nearly 2 tons of steel with genuine, unmistakable authority. Chrysler paired the engine with a heavy-duty 3-speed automatic transmission specifically engineered by Hearst to handle the extra torque reliably. Only around 500 examples of the 300 Hearst were ever built, making it one of the rarest and most historically significant big Chryslers of the entire decade. Its limited production run and unusual factory and aftermarket collaboration make it a particularly interesting case study in how Detroit blurred the line between luxury and performance as the muscle car era reached its peak. Today, the finest 300 Hearst examples easily exceed $50,000, and fully documented, unrestored, low-mileage cars continue to draw strong and growing interest from serious Mopar collectors who recognize just how significant this final letter series adjacent Chrysler really was. Of these last three, the Marauder X100, the Galaxy 500 XL, or the 300 Hearst, which one do you think did the best job of hiding its power? Let me know below because we've still got 3 more cars left on this list, and they might just be the most surprising ones yet. 1962 Dodge Polara 500. Dodge built the Polara 500 to compete directly with cars like the Impala SS and Galaxy 500, offering a full-size car with slightly sportier trim, bucket seats and a center console, while still remaining every bit as respectable and conservative as a standard Dodge sedan. Its exterior styling stayed deliberately conservative, with clean lines and modest, tasteful trim that gave absolutely no hint of what buyers could option underneath the hood. On paper, and in the eyes of most people who saw one drive past, it was simply a slightly nicer Dodge sedan. That's exactly where the story turns genuinely interesting, because Dodge offered the Polara 500 with the now legendary 413 cubic inch max wedge V8, producing up to 420 horsepower in its most aggressive factory tune. This engine was designed almost entirely with drag racing in mind, featuring specially designed cross-ram intake manifolds and a compression ratio far higher than anything else in Dodge's regular lineup. Cars equipped with the full max wedge package could run the quarter-mile in the 13-second range, numbers that genuinely belonged on a drag strip rather than in an executive's driveway or a company parking lot. Very few max wedge Polaras were built even at the time, since most buyers who wanted that kind of performance opted for lighter, more purpose-built Dodge models instead. Today, the finest surviving max wedge-equipped Polara 500 examples easily exceed $90,000 at auction, with fully documented, matching numbers cars representing some of the rarest and most sought-after full-size Mopars from the entire era. 1965 Oldsmobile Starfire. Oldsmobile positioned the Starfire as its premium personal luxury coupe, a car built primarily for comfort, style and a touch of genuine exclusivity rather than for outright performance. Its long hood, clean fastback-inspired roofline, and restrained use of trim gave it real visual elegance, closer in spirit to a European Grand Tourer than a typical American performance car. Inside, the Starfire doubled down on that luxury positioning with leather bucket seats, a full array of gauges, and a level of standard equipment that placed it firmly among Oldsmobile's most prestigious offerings. It was, by every outward measure, a car built for comfortable cruising rather than stoplight competitions. But underneath that refined bodywork, Oldsmobile fitted a 425 cubic inch V8 producing up to 370 horsepower, giving the Starfire genuinely thrilling, muscle car-level acceleration wrapped inside a car that most people assumed was built purely for effortless highway cruising. The engine was tuned to deliver its power smoothly, reinforcing the car's luxury image even while it quietly outran plenty of dedicated performance models. Today, the finest Oldsmobile Starfire examples easily exceed $30,000 and low-mileage, original, well-documented cars are becoming increasingly sought after as collectors continue to rediscover Oldsmobile's often overlooked performance history from this era. 1957 Rambler Rebel. Long before any other car on this list, American Motors quietly built what many historians consider one of the very first true sleeper sedans in American automotive history. The Rambler Rebel looked like exactly what AMC was known for at the time. A practical, sensible, midsize family car with absolutely no outward performance pretensions whatsoever. Its styling was clean and functional rather than flashy, designed to appeal to budget-conscious families rather than performance enthusiasts. Nothing about its modest trim or upright proportions suggested it belonged anywhere near a drag strip. That made what was actually underneath the hood even more shocking to anyone who found out. The Rebel was fitted with a 327 cubic inch V8 producing 255 horsepower, an enormous amount of power relative to the car's size and weight for 1957. With that engine, the Rebel could out-accelerate almost every other American car on sale that year, including dedicated performance models from Chevrolet and Ford that cost considerably more and looked far more aggressive. AMC built the Rebel in fairly limited numbers before pulling back from this performance experiment, and today the finest surviving Rambler Rebel examples easily exceed $40,000, with well-documented, numbers-matching cars considered among the rarest and most historically important true sleepers in the entire history of American automobiles. After going through this entire list, one thing becomes very clear. Detroit's biggest performance secret wasn't always sitting on the outside of the car. Sometimes the fastest car in the entire parking lot was the one that looked like it belonged to somebody's boss, quietly idling next to the mailroom clerk's much slower, much louder-looking car. These weren't marketing gimmicks or one-off concept cars built purely for show. They were real, production automobiles sold through ordinary dealerships to ordinary buyers, many of whom had absolutely no idea just how much performance was sitting under that dignified, understated hood. Now I want to hear your opinion. Of everything on this list, which executive sleeper would you have wanted to find parked next to you in the company lot? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this journey through Detroit's best-kept secrets, don't miss the video appearing on your screen right now, because next we're ranking the wildest muscle cars that never got anywhere near the recognition they truly deserved.